to everyone. No, they are my students. That's why. Yes. They were saying that the last are the best. Am I right?
Yeah, the last but the best.
Last but the best. Yes, yeah, we say that, and we agree with this. Everyone agrees. So this is the last session of this very, very interesting day together. It was interesting, but it was as well tiring. So our purpose now is to be very concise and to allow everyone to have a walk around in Brindisi after this session. So I'm very proud to chair this panel that is about democratic participation and citizens' assemblies. And we have 5 panelists. Among them, we have 2 women, and I'm very proud of this because we are used sometimes to have panels that are panels composed mostly by men. Instead, in this conference, we were very careful also with gender balance because we are convinced that gender balance is one of the keys for democratic governance in our societies. So I'm very happy of this. Lots of women here. But we have to start. I cannot take too much time. The first here on my right there is Michele Fiorillo. Michele Fiorillo is a friend of mine, first of all. But he's a friend of mine, but he's also mostly... No, of course, I'm joking, you know. He's a PhD candidate in philosophy and political thought at the Scuola Normale Superiore, Pisa, working especially on theories of democracy and critical theory. He has been visiting scholar in different important European universities, and he has also been member of the Central Committee of the Italian branch of the European Federalist Movement. Finally, now he is one of the initiators of the Citizens Takeover Europe, and also is the coordinator of the European Citizens Assembly project. This afternoon, he will give us a presentation on a very interesting and important issue that is transnational deliberative democracy. We are used in the context of the European Union law to hear about concepts such as representative democracy, participatory democracy as well, especially after the Treaty of Lisbon. And this afternoon, Michele will say something about this third pillar of democracy that is deliberative democracy. The floor is yours.
So, first of all, going straight to the title of this presentation, which is transnational deliberative democracy. So, some definition, and I will try to read quickly, so maybe I can stay in 15 minutes. So, when we talk about democracy, of course, normally we mean power of the people, no? From the Greek demos or demoi, of which was composed the Athenian political body. In that model, you remember in the ancient Athens, there was an ecclesia that was the assembly of all the citizens of the city, of the polis, state city, and the boule, the council, was formed by sortition by a given number of citizens, 400, 500, change. That is the origin of the term, we know, and I'm not the first to say that when we talk about democracy, one should make a distinction between democracy as an ideal type, Weberian definition, and democracy as a concrete form of government. As a pure ideal type, democracy is the form of government where the governors are the one that hold the administration of political power. So the one that hold the administration of political power coincide with the government. Generally speaking, according to the principle of autonomy. So autonomy, the demos, the people giving the nomos, the law, to themselves. This happens when we can say that this happens, generally speaking, in history when a group of people, so not only in Athens, when on ancient Athens, when a group of people join together in an organized community and agree on the fact of having to consider all the associated to this community as equals in determination of politics of the association itself. For this reason, Dahl, not Roald Dahl, the storyteller, but Robert Dahl, the political scientist, indicated 5 requisites to which must correspond adequate institutions to be called democratic. 1, the associates have to possess equal and true effective opportunities to participate to decisions. 3, in consequence, their votes must to have the same weight. 4, they must to be condition of control of the political agenda, and for that objective. 5, in that particular form of association of state, in the case of state, in which the obedience to the law is obligatory, state in the sense of a community where there are institutions that can enforce law, then could be also a police, could be a region, whatever. In this situation, all the adults subjected to the government must have equally recognized the right to participate, because they have then to obey to this law, and they know that this law are enforced on them. So finally, in our one formula, this is a definition by Dahl, they have the same rights, freedom, opportunities, and resources implicated from the other conditions. In the real world, a system of government on a state level as such, respecting all those 5 conditions, probably never existed, that also Dahl said that, so not me, and we can consider that fact as the basis of one of the bases of the contemporary citizens or civil society critics of democratic deficit at different level. But we can say that also in the celebrated ancient Athenian democracy, at least the 5th condition was not respected, because, as we know, not all those to whom the law was applied, considering, for instance, women, strangers, slaves, not all those people were participating to the determination of the law in an assembly. No? And that, of course, Professor Muri would explain us a lot about that. That was not only in Athenian democracy, as we know, but until the 19th and the 20th century, for most of the place on earth, the women were excluded by voting. And even now, in our democracy, often the residents, they are not citizens of a given space, they don't have right of vote. So even if they are not slaves, but also the definition of slavery could be extended somehow to salary, not well-paid work in our societies. But this is not the topic of today. Something similar happened in the modern liberal representative democracy. Okay, I just said that, so we can skip on that. And I want to introduce here now another distinction, because Claudia said, okay, normally you talk about representative participation, so the distinction between participation and deliberation. Participation is an ambiguous word, and in any case, per se, is not the same thing of deliberation. We can, for instance, have a form of direct democracy, direct participatory democracy, without equal discussion in an assembly. And also not very rule type of voting in an assembly. For instance, you could have a plebiscitarian vote with hands after the speech of a strong leader to a multitude. That is the case, for instance, what happened also in some pre-authoritarian or fully authoritarian regime. Sometimes they even call it as democratic. If we think, for instance, to the theories of Carl Schmitt, he was elaborating all a theory against representative democracy, against parliamentarianism, saying that that was good for the times of enlightenment, where you had an elite that was deliberating about the common good, because the common good at the end was the good of an elite. But then in mass politics, from the end of the 19th century, this model could not more work, as it was demonstrated by the failure of some parliamentary democracy, as Weimar Republic itself. And so he was proposing democracy as precisely the consent of a mass to the speech of a leader, of a Führer. But also the assemblyarist model of participatory democracy, if you think to the 68 movements, the 60s, 70s movements of, for instance, the New Left in different European countries, there you had a model where every decision was, or theoretically every decision was made in an assembly. But also there, like, this promise was a bit fade or misinterpreted, because also there you, at the end in the assemblies, you had the creation of leadership that were deciding over the participants. So also the promise of a continuous democracy, permanent assemblies, as they call, at the end they fade under the de facto dynamic of an elite into the assembly, or in the organizative phase of an assembly that was passing all the decision through an assembly. And this, in fact, in a way applied all the critics that already Robert Michels, Mosca, and Pareto made, generally speaking, to the idea, to the ideal of democracy, this elitist theory. You know, when they say at the end, in all history, even in so-called liberal democracy, it's just a few people that decide everything. And Robert Michels was a social democrat, and then he became also supporter of Mussolini by the idea that even the social democratic parties, they were betraying this idea of the possibility of mass democracy, where everyone would become protagonist and autonomous in the sense of giving themselves norms. Also, more recently, we had, for instance, with the movement of Indignados that, and the Occupy movements, maybe you remember these acampadas that, in a way, also push all those movements that in Spain become an institutionalized form of new type of democracy, with also the use of this platform, Decidim, that now was used also by the Commission for the Conference on the Future of Europe. Also there, even if they tried, remembering this failure of assemblyarist assemblies in the 60s, 70s, they tried this new technique of debate, where you could just take the floor no more than 2 times. Everyone should have given the floor, so no more than 2 or 5 minutes, etc. Even there, at the end, the charismatic, populistic immersion of a leadership applied. As, for instance, you could have seen in the debate inside Podemos party, some debates between Iglesias and Indigo Errejón. 5 minutes, okay, so. Like, then I will go now from, a definition of Habermas, so what is then proper deliberation, Jürgen Habermas, the theorist of discursive reason. According to Jürgen Habermas, ideal deliberation is a type of discursive mechanism where no force except that one of the better argument is exercised, and all the people take part to the discussion and the confrontation of better arguments. So it's not a question of consensus in the sense of gaining vote of the others also on the basis of organized vote. It could be in an election of a community that has to elect representative, but also inside an organization. The mechanism for deliberative democracy should be not the ones to form consensus under a leadership, but to persuade reciprocally about something. So it's the idea of a discursive reason where everyone could contribute to the immersion of this reason. From this model, that if taken like that, so it could be simply like a theoretical thing. From the, let's say, from the 80s onwards, there were interest by the political scientists, but also by democracy activists, in the experimentation of a model of assembly, new model of assembly that was called citizens' assembly. What is a citizen assembly? A citizen assembly is, at the end, in a nutshell, a sample of citizens and residents. The political scientists now, in the articles, scientific articles, they call them mini publics of a given political community, a city, a region, a state, a continent, or potentially the world, drawn by lot to represent the diversity and complexity of society as a whole, maxi public. Beyond party divisions, in particular interests and nationalities, drawn by lot, and citizens put them in a decision-making process in which they participate directly in the elaboration of public policy recommendations. In a way, we can say that the model of a citizen assembly allows for a combination of participatory direct democracy and representative democracy, but using a different instrument of representativeness than voting, which is precisely that of a stratified lottery, so the lottery by which you choose the citizen. And this stratified lottery could be decided, the form of this sortition could be decided by an algorithm, where you can say the condition, half woman, half man, half from the cities, half from towns that are not nearby the cities, 1/3 young people, and so on, at least, so every decile of population, etc. This is assembly, because I'm like, I just now answered to the question of the partially of what is deliberation. In 1 minute, I'm just showing what is happening, because many of you already know that this model of citizen assembly that were experimented, for instance, in Ireland at the national scale, and you remember probably this referendum that was surprising many people, that the referendum voted for abortion in Ireland had a positive result. This was also the result of a big discursive moment that was instructed by a citizen assembly, drawn by lot at national level, that prepared the public opinion involving all the stakeholders of this type of discussion before a referendum vote. And this model of the Irish Citizen Assembly was then taken by different NGOs to push, as an example, to push European institutions in the preparation of the Conference on the Future of Europe to scale up this experiment at a continental level. And for that we had this, how many people heard about the Conference on the Future of Europe here in this okay. Okay, this is quite prepared auditorium, because now, I mean, by the way, I see 15, no more 15 people, but normally in the normal auditorium, 2-3 people if it's good. By the way, the European institution, it's not, they cannot see. Okay, by the way, during the Conference of the Future of Europe, there was a process instructed by the three European institutions, Parliament, Council, and Commission, to collect ideas from both members of the institution and national bodies and civil society. Voi potete vedere? No, okay. At the end, under the pressure of civil society organizations, they agreed to insert also experimentation of participatory elements, and particularly deliberative type of participatory elements of democracy, and particularly here, which language is Latvian? Okay, let's put English. Okay, so, and then surprisingly, for many people in the Commission, especially the Commission and the Parliament, they were smart enough to hear many civil society organizations and scholars say, okay, let's do what was made in Ireland also for the European level. It was created for the first time an European sort of citizen assembly at a transnational level, the European citizen panels. 800 people drawn by lot by all the different European countries, by different social sectors, etc. Half woman, half men, of course. They were put together to give recommendations to the European institution about the future of Europe. And surprisingly, one of these recommendations was to continue this type of exercise, and now the Commission, in fact, is using citizen panel, using the term using, not by chance, but now there is not a term of debate, but in one word, the risk is here the one of citizen washing, because the Commission is presenting the draft of the policy that then could bring to the initiation of the legislative process of the European Union. Now the first step will be, together with the stakeholder consultation, normally was made online, not so many people know about. Now they are done through also through European citizen panels on specific matters. So lately there was a citizen panel about learning mobility, one about virtual world, another one about food waste. Last thing, because I already passed by, how we could imagine that could work also at the global level. It could seem it's impossible, but in reality there are already experimentation. There are like academic experimentation. This one is initiated, no, this is not academic, by the way, this is another experimentation, Global Assembly, that was started on the eve of COP, Conference of Parties 26, and that frame were convened the citizens from all the part of the world, I mean, with a mechanism now I don't have the time to explain. And they had the possibility to make a deliberation about general policy to contrast climate crisis, and somehow these deliberations were also heard by some of the political leaders at the Assembly. And at the academic level, again, it's not the right link. By the way, there is a Genoma Global Assembly that for the moment is just designed at the academic level by the University of Canberra, where there is a big center of deliberative democracy, where the question is how the human gender as a whole should deliberate the burden, the low burden at global level, also in terms of treaties, etc., to avoid that the human genome codification is used for commercial reasons or other bad use that could be done with it, and so on. And of course, United Nations, as European Union has done during the Conference of the Future of Europe, could maybe imagine to start a proper experimentation with citizens done by lot from all the continents, for instance, to deliberate about the climate crisis, measures to be taken, or endurable and hopefully perpetual peace, which is not the case we are in. But yeah, now it's a bit superficial, this last part of my presentation. I hope there will be more time in writing to present it more structurally. Sorry for my English.
Thank you, Michele. I didn't want to interrupt you, but you know I have to be strict with time. And this is a very challenging issue because, of course, it's fascinating, this idea of deliberative democracy, but there are, of course, limits, shortcomings that must be underlined. And now we don't have time, but I'm sure that you will go more in depth in your writing. Now the floor is of Bleda Kurti, please come to. I'm very happy to have here Bleda. He is not a friend of mine, but he will be a friend of mine from today on. I'm very happy because Bleda comes from Albania. And we know that for Italy, Albanians have always been like brothers. It is the country in front of us. Brindisi has a very strong link with your country, and we are very, very happy to welcome you here. But the other reason, I think the most important reason, is that, as you may know, Albania is a candidate country. Negotiations are ongoing with the European Commission, and so it will be very interesting to verify whether or not Albania can look at the European Union once as a model for participatory forms of civic engagement and citizens' participation. Let me shortly introduce Bleda. He is a university lecturer, a writer, and a political analyst as well. He has served for many years in public office as the advisor of the President and of Ministers of the Republic of Albania, as well as advisor to majors and members of the Parliament. He has published several books, both in Albanian and in English, and he has authored thousands of articles. So I was very impressed by your curriculum. He has received his education in different countries such as England, France, Italy, and the United States. His presentation will be about proposals on serious issues regarding civic participation and citizens' activism in Albania. The floor is yours.
Buonasera a tutti, sono molto contento che sono qua con voi. Grazie professoressa Susanna, Città del Salento, tutti I colleghi, studenti. Now, it's a great pleasure to be here with you guys. It's been very interesting and insightful conference. Today I'm going to talk about a tiny, tiny country across this Adriatic Sea here, which is Albania. But I will use it as an illustration about democracy, that what happens if we are not vigilant, if we are not awake. Those who fall asleep in democracy, which by the way, most of the countries take it for granted, it is there, it will always be there, but they might wake up in a dictatorship. But do not go back to history and think that any regime, dictatorship or aristocracy, whatever, can be imposed by tanks, by airplanes, coup d'etat, and so on. No, there is a better, more sophisticated way of doing that you even be called a hero, a reformator. You use the law. Here comes, I'm not going to cite any great man or great academician. I'm going to cite Al Pacino and Keanu Reeves in the movie The Devil's Advocate. I hope you have seen that. And he says, "Dad, why the law?" says Keanu Reeves to the devil. And Al Pacino says, "Why the law? Because the law puts up into it, into everything, because it is the ultimate backstage pass, is the new priesthood baby. Law, everybody is. I met some law students who were talking about this earlier. Who controls the law? By law, you can legitimize everything. Yeah, because the law says so. So we have to obey the law. Then you can impose autocracy, Nazism, communism, whatever. Because that's how they came into power. Now I'll give you the Albanian case. When we were not vigilant, something happened in 2017, 2019 in Albania. The opposition made a big error, abandoned all the mandates in parliament. What? What about those people who voted for you? You give the whole parliament to the majority, and here what it is. I hope you can see the chart. You can see in 1991, right after the collapse of communism in Albania, the government had about 82%. In 2020, 91%. Control in local government, central parliament, in everything. And here we are back, 30 years. That was 3 days ago. Sorry, 4 days ago. Well done. The Socialist Party deserved it. 90% of local elections. 90% in a very democratic way, right? But here it comes the trick. That's why I'm saying the law is the key to dismantle all the mechanisms, which I'm going to talk here. No referendums. Albanian citizens haven't voted, haven't participated in any referendum since 1994, 97, which was something about shall Albania become monarchy or republic? You know, it's simple as that. Since then, no referendum. There have been attempts, 2003, 2008, so on, but remember the law. It's a constitutional right, but decided by Central Elections Committee, who appoints them? Political parties. So it's not legal. We cannot hold referendums. So I'm going to go a bit voting. Oh dear, elections in Albania, 20 elections since 1991, 357 recommendations. Only three elections were accepted as, acceptable. Okay? And recommendations, not legally binding. We come to voting in Albania for parliament. Albanians do not vote for candidates. It's proportional system. They vote for the party. Okay? Does it make any sense to you? To me, it doesn't. You vote the party according to the votes, the number, the first 10. Enter parliament, the first 2 from the other side. So you vote for the party. There is no direct voting for the candidates. Yes, okay, come on, forget politics, forget political parties, right? Let us be independent. Let us take the courage and stand for the people, represent our neighborhood, our community. Let's change Albania, Italy, France, whatever country, right? Well, the law, electoral code. You need 5% nationwide signatures to be registered. And still you need to be political party. Still regulations, law. Nobody can run, it's impossible. Right? And 2 political parties want an alliance to run against the majority. 2 years ago, it was changed, the constitution was changed. There are no pre-election coalitions. That means majority wins all the time. I'm not saying the Albanian majority or your country's majority is bad. Trust me, I've worked with Prime Minister, with Minister, with the President of Albania. Okay? Now, politics, governments, it's in their nature to extend their power as much as they can. It's like an animal, political animal hungry for meat. They want to eat, they want to extend their hand, put it in your pocket. That's the nature of politics and government. Do not pretend to leave it in their conscience that, oh yeah, we have to do for the people. No, it is the nature, just like a lion is nature. It won't eat grass, it eats meat. A chicken, a donkey, whatever, they eat grass. The nature of politics and governments, this is what it is. Now, knowing that, that's why we have to strengthen the mechanisms to contain the power. There is no one in the world who doesn't want more power. This is human nature, okay? That's why any majority will do whatever they can. Control the media, control the press, free speech, win elections. That's the nature of hardcore politics. The art of governance, to keep the power, to extend the power, to put their hand in your pocket so that to increase taxes and more the budget for the government, right? The mechanisms, how to dismantle them? By law. How to strengthen them? Civil activism. Here we come. This is our job here, to contain. It is tiring, it is demoralizing, absolutely, it is. But we have to keep the wheel going. We have to keep this balance for the people, right? Now, since 2002, no public debate between candidates in Albania. 21 years. This was the first and last. Why? Majority thinks that they are in advantage. Why lose the advantage? And maybe if we make a mistake in the public debate, the people are losing. It's not determined by law. So we're not doing anything. We don't know. They have nothing to say. You have seen our job, how we changed the country. You are more rich today than yesterday. We don't need public debates. No platform, no people. This is how it starts, okay? But let's open our own TV. Well done to the Prime Minister of Albania. This is great. It's genius. He opened his own TV and podcast. Amazing. I'm a political advisor. I thought when I saw that, I said, it's genius. Okay? It's genius. Well done to him, but where are the mechanisms? The use of, the free media, freedom of speech. While the government opens its own television and podcasts, only last week, Albania was ranked last in the Balkans for freedom of media. Do these two things go together? Absolutely not. The government does what it should do, the mechanisms. That's why civil society is important. Why is it not working? First, because we were under communism. The term civil society does not, even today, exist in the Albanian dictionary. It doesn't. Because it has to be updated. The last one was 1985, so during communism it has to be updated. So we don't have a history of civil society. When we heard civil society, we thought, okay, civil, military, civil, okay? You are either military or not military, okay? So we do not have, also with syndicates, non-existent, not working, anything, okay? But nobody's paying attention to that on purpose. 5 minutes, great. Again to justice. Albania underwent 3 years ago a justice reform. This is the most unique justice reform in the world. Believe you me, because those who are paying for it, the Albanian state budget, the European Union, United States, and other factor, which is millions and millions of euros. Okay? Justice reform sounds good. Remove all the corrupt judges. Bring justice, rule of law, all right? Sounds amazing, utopic. What happened? 3 years, Albania was left without a constitutional court. 3 years. The only body and institution that can check the government was not functioning. The High Court for the files, for the complaints of the individuals, the ordinary citizens, 3 years out of order. 40,000 cases, files, are still documented in the High Court. It will take 30 years to review. But in those 3 years, the constitution was changed, the laws and everything, because there was no policeman. That's why in the last election, only 36% voted. Nothing to ignite the civil society, nothing to ignite the people. What immediate action? Of course, mobilization of civil society and all the intellectuals and so on, and all the bodies that, NGOs and so on, from bottom up. But, as I mentioned earlier, the mechanisms are not working, and I hope they will never collapse in your own countries. Just watch it. It will come slowly and sweetly like honey. Okay? But in Albania's case, because it's aspiring to join the EU, it is time for European Union not to just preach like it was mentioned earlier, not just to say, well done, you made progress, you guys are great, but let's see next year. It has to set standards, and it's time for supranational authority to intervene countries. Because as a good coach who is planning to get a player, a footballer, to come and play the next game, he has to watch beforehand during training and so on. Albania is at the heart of Europe. It's geographically, mentally, traditionally, it's European. We are European. Yet, it seems so far to be EU member. We hope we'll get there. I will keep fighting and keep dying, like Achilles. But final message, because we have some students here. Please do not be discouraged. Never, ever, ever. If a bridge is destroyed, we do not just leave it like that. We build another bridge. If it's destroyed, we build it again. That's what we do. Because people are hungry all the time. The poor in the world, there are so many. We do not just give up because we have no food. We keep feeding them day by day. So please, never ever give up. Try and give everything you have, because there is no more noble cause than changing other people's lives and contributing for your own country. Thank you very much for it.
Thank you, Indiana, so much, mostly for this last message of hope and of courage and this call for activism for our students. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. So now we have Marco Basco. Stefania, can you help us with the PowerPoint presentation? You later mentioned how important is freedom of expression in every country and how in danger it could be if we are not aware. Yeah, we have to take care of what we have, and we do not have to take rights for granted, never and ever. And I think that Marco's presentation is perfectly in line with you have said, because it will deal with a very, very important issue in our contemporary times. In fact, the title is The Proposed Directive on SLAPs, a tool for strengthening civic participations and citizens' activism. I don't know if all of you are aware about what SLAPs are. Maybe I just say a few words. SLAPs are those strategic lawsuits carried out against public participations, and victims used to be journalists, human rights, and political activists. So those actions, those lawsuits, are aimed at chilling their action. So they are a true danger for civic participation. And it is important that the European Union has taken action in order to fight against this phenomenon. You mentioned in your abstract Daphne Caruana Galizia, that was one of the victims of harassment against journalists, and that is something very dangerous for democracy, because freedom of speech, freedom of media is one of the pillars of contemporary democracy. So I'm very happy that you will touch this topic in our panel. Marco is a PhD fellow in international law at the Catholic University of the Sacred Heart of Milan, and is also teaching assistant in international law in the same university. And he's very brilliant because he has been awarded by the CD, that is the Italian Society of International and European Union Law, of a very important prize, that is Daniele Padovani Prize, for his final thesis dissertation that was about collective redress action, cross-border infringements of data protection rights in the EU law. So congratulations for this important achievement, and we are very happy to have you here this afternoon.
Many thanks, Professor Morini, for the introduction. Good evening to all of you in presence and remotely. First of all, I would like to thank the scientific and the organizing committee for this exciting dialogue. A big thank you also to Brindisi in general for the warm hospitality. Let's start. Democracy. Democracy is the foundation the European Union is based on, and can only thrive in a climate where freedom of expression is upheld, in line with the Article 10 of the European Convention on Human Rights and the Article 11 of the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union. For a healthy and prosperous democracy, people need to be able to actively participate in public debate without undue interference. In order to ensure a meaningful participation, people need to have access to reliable information, enabling them to form their own ideas in a public space where different opinions can be freely expressed. Here then that activists play a fundamental role in facilitating public debate and in communicating information, opinion, and ideas. An obstacle to freedom of expression and participation, activism, and ultimately to democracy is today represented by SLAPs. SLAPs is an acronym, SLAPPS, Strategic Lawsuits Against Public Participation. What does expression refer to? This expression was born in the United States of America about 30 years ago, and is referred to legal proceedings. So claimant versus defendant. Claimant starts a claim, defendant is brought before court. These claims are initiated against journalists, academics, and activists regarding information activities carried out by them in relation to facts of public interest, such as corruptive practices, violation of human rights, or environmental offenses. They are typically action brought in civil proceedings, by which the claimant complains about the defamatory nature of the journalistic writings. The request is simple: to be compensated for damages. The claimant is often an important person on a political, economic, global scene, or a large company investing lots of resources in this initiative. The strategic nature of this proceeding lies in the fact that the claimant, by invoking the defendant's liability, the journalistic one, actually aimed to make him or her withdraw, retire from these public interest activities and to dissuade him, her, and others, journalists, from carrying out similar ones. So the claimant makes use of a legitimate instrument to achieve a different purpose, other than the one to which the tool is preordinated by the legal order. In the final analysis, it is proposed to silence a voice, deemed uncomfortable because influencing the public debate. Slaps are by definition legally unfounded and dubious actions. Indeed, the claimant does not really expect to get the defendant convicted or sanctioned. The practical purpose of this initiative is indeed achieved at the very moment in which the defendant is brought before the court. Due to the cost of participation that this proceeding involves, court costs, fee costs, lawyers' costs, and the risk of its outcome, just when filed, this proceeding is capable of producing a dissuasive effect, a chilling effect. Initiatives of this kind are capable of compromising the effective exercise of the freedom of democratic participation. But let's consider a case study to better understand what we are talking about. Daphne Caruana Galizia, today I really wanted to sit here and say she is. Unfortunately, I have to say she was. She was an editor of one of the most important popular blogs in Malta, engaged in numerous investigations and active against corruption. Her voice attracted so much attention in the public debate that it disturbed politics and businessmen. On 16 October 2017, Daphne was murdered by an explosive device planted under her car seat outside her home in Malta. But why do we think about her here? Because her life was continually destroyed by legal proceedings brought all over the course of the world to silence her. Upon her death, so only upon her death, 40 legal proceedings resulted pending, some of which continue after her death against her family. To sum up, so we have democracy and freedom of expression. We have an obstacle to democracy, slaps. So now let's focus on the topic of this dialogue, tool. The Council of Europe has begun in the last years to deal with this issue of slaps. And the work done by the Council of Europe has been used by the European Commission for the starting point of its proposal for a directive. Proposal for a directive on protecting persons who engage in public participation from manifestly unfounded or abusive court proceedings. This directive proposal is divided into 6 chapters, but rather than conducting an article-by-article theoretical analysis here, I would like to make something quite different. So, via the online portal of the Daphne Caruana Galizia Foundation, I am taking notes of some of the proceedings which involve her, and I search in the web for the relevant judgments in the case law, the Maltese case law, and now I will to make an experiment, an effectiveness test, we can call it, because I would like to submit this directive proposal to an effectiveness test. I would like to try to apply this directive, imagine it as approved and as implemented in the member states, to these cases, in order to see what can change. Case number 1. Edgar Bornici Cachia versus Daphne Caruana Galizia. Edgar Bornici Cachia was a politician, has been a politician in Malta, and Daphne Caruana Galizia, via her blog, had begun to deal with him. Just about his past life, because she made 3 posts, 3 articles, and what they were about. Simply his criminal record, just it. So she reported about his past life, his criminal record. To clean up his public image, he was very hungry, and he filed a complaint to Maltese police for 3 liable cases, requesting a criminal sanction for her. So what would the directive can do in this case? Unfortunately, I would say that the directive would have no impact, because the directive shall apply only to matters of civil and commercial matter, not in criminal issues. The problem arises to the extent that proceedings relating to defamations can be both civil and criminal in nature. They are governed differently from the substantive point of view by the civil code or the criminal code of the member state concerned. The proposed directive does not cover all of them, but only those having a civil nature, and not even all the civilian ones, but only those having a cross-border element. What is a cross-border element? An internationality element. But this is so because of the competencies. The European Union legislator can intervene under Article 81 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union as legal basis on judicial cooperation in civil matters only in situations having a cross-border element, not in those cases that we can call purely internal one. Is it relevant, this exclusion? Yes, because defamation continues to have a criminal implication today in most of the member states of the European Union. And lots of purely internal slaps have been filed during these years. But it is also true that the real game, if we want to call it in this way, is played in the civil field, not in the criminal one. Because in the criminal one, the public prosecutor, the person who carries out the prosecution, guarantees and restores this imbalance, this imbalance. So finally, to confirm, do you want to know about these 3 libel cases I was telling you about? What about them? How they ended up? 3 judgments in favor of Daphne Caruana Galizia. Case number 2. For chapter 2 and 4 of the directive. This chapter deals with the cost element, the money element, during the proceedings and at the end of it. This is a crucial element because 4 cases against Daphne Caruana Galizia was brought before the civil Maltese court, in this case, by these 2 politicians, Christian Cardona and Josep Guerrada. Why? They claim liable for damages for 4 articles that were published on her blog. She reported that during a journey representing the government of Malta in Germany, they went to abroad, so to a place where to have sex by payment. But they did so when they represent the Maltese government. And This case are really interesting because of the money element. Their desire of revenge was really high, and they put pressure on the economic aspect. They request to issue precautionary warrant. It is a sum of money which, upon the request of one party and the order of the court, a person has to anticipate. And this money becomes unavailable until a new order. So Daphne Caruana Galizia bank account were frozen for 47,000 euros. This event paralyzed her life, causing her lots of problems also to her family. And they reached their objective because Daphne and after her family retired this post, and they did not present this picture about these 2 men in that product, entering in that product. So this directive could have an impact on this, yes, in this case, because the directive has lots of many articles. Article 7, third-party intervention. Non-governmental organization can intervene, helping journalists in this proceeding. Or Article 8, security. The power for the court to order the claimant, so the big party, to provide costs and damages in this case. Or Article 14, award of cost, The responsible of this abusive proceeding should bear all the cost of the proceedings, fee, courts, and lawyers, and also some instruments at the end of the proceedings. If you file this type of the proceedings, you have to be sanctioned with the penalties according to this directive. So I think that the situation would have changed in this case, because Daphne in this case was also obliged to pay her lawyer's cost, so she had to pay on her motion. In this case, they have to pay for her. Finally, another case, but I do not want to deepen it more, and this case is about time. These litigation cases last a lot. In this case, only 2 years. In other case, this proceeding lasts 10 years. And 10 years pending means money, means anxiety, means silence, voices. So to conclude, after this analysis, a final assessment. This directive is interesting because it is the European Union attempt to respond to a need to strengthen democracy and to close the circle we started from, to protect these fundamental rights. This directive, indeed, is a tool for states to fulfill with a positive obligation, because these rights impose on states 2 types of obligation. A negative one, not to interfere with the freedom of expression and democracy, but also a positive one, which is implicit. States have to intervene. How? By legislating in order to restore this imbalance in horizontal relationships that are private versus private litigation, not state versus private. This proposal, unfortunately, does not have much energy. Few member states are interested in it, not all, and the European Commission is moving toward a political change, but we hope about the adoption of this text. Is this only tool enough? I would say no. 2 other tools are necessary. First, the protection against lapse should be provided by member states also in domestic action, in the plural internal one. Second, defamation should be only a civil matter. Member states should decriminalize defamation. All member states. Many thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Marco, for being so perfectly in time, and also for your insightful presentation. And I just want to make a very, very short reflection. Yesterday, we were in Lecce for a book launch. We presented a book that is a collection of speeches of former European Parliament President David Sassoli, that passed away 1 year ago. And in one of his very, very interesting and insightful speeches, he said how important it was for the European Union to fight against those actions. And he said, we have to do this for Daphne. So
he was a journalist.
Yes, he was a journalist as well. And I think that the promise he made is now becoming a reality. And I also think that it's a book that needs to be translated, at least in English, because every European citizen need to read it. So it is in Italian, La saggezza e l'audacia. If you can read Italian, you can buy it. So thank you so much. Now we move to my 2 wonderful female colleagues. The first of which is Natasha Krajewicz. Natasha is a teaching associate at the Faculty of Visual Arts and the Faculty of Economics and Business at the University Mediterranean, Podgorica. She was a PhD student at the Faculty of Economics and Business in the same university, where she has also worked as head of international office. Nowadays, Natasha is the president of the Montenegrin Center of International Theatre Institute. So, in this panel, now we are moving in another field, we may say, of study, that is the cultural field. And I wrote a book a few years ago, and the last chapter of my book was about participatory governance in the field of cultural heritage. So the idea that culture could be a means to promote, to improve civic participation, and through this improvement to achieve a more democratic governance is something in which I strongly believe. So I'm very curious to listen to your presentation, which title is The Influence of the International Knowledge Exchange in the Field of Cultural Policy Making and Democratic Governance. So the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you all. Thank you, organizers, for giving me the opportunity to be here today. And thank all of you for staying. I know that you're tired, and I would like to keep it short for everybody's sake. Okay, closer. Okay. What I wanted to talk about is about the international knowledge exchange in the field of cultural policy. This is something, this presentation is just a part of the bigger and wider research that is happening and still in progress. So I took out some elements that I would like to share. Actually, even though it looks like I'm going away from the field, I'm somehow still staying in the field. I'm just, I think that I'm taking just the other approach in a sense to highlight some issues that are happening. I think as well that this presentation fit perfectly in the agenda at the end of the day, because we were discussing the democracy and the European societies all day, and now we're a bit moving away from that territory and going into maybe outskirts of Europe, and some countries, they are in line and waiting for the membership in European Union, like Montenegro is in case. Before I start, I would just like to introduce you with a slide or two with the situation in Montenegro in regards to communication with the European Union. Since 2012, Montenegro is a candidate, which is 11 years today. And since the beginning, Montenegro had 33 chapters to open and to negotiate with the European Union. Out of 33, 3 have been closed the same day, which is culture, science, education, and foreign affairs. Everything else have been open since 2012 to 15-16. Since 16 till 2020, nothing happened in that regard, which means that all of these chapters are today in 2023 still open. This can be explained from both sides, and this side and the other side. One smart friend of mine once said that when the Berlin Wall fell, it fell on both sides. So I think that the actions and reactions can be, if we look at from the above, can be seen from on the and from the both sides. But in regards to Montenegro, I can say that we had some political issues like all of these countries, and Montenegro changed the government in 2020, and after 2020 we learned that we can change government because we had the same one for 30 years. And since 2020, we changed it twice, so now we are getting better at it. But in regards to this topic, we reopened the negotiations, and now they are coming again to be a topic. In regards to the culture, now I'm moving to the field of culture, because one of the chapters is culture. It was closed immediately, and now it is again a topic for negotiation. So this is the chapter number 26, and it is led by Ministry, of course, of Education and Ministry of Culture. Besides that, when we talk about cultural sector, we can talk about regular cultural sector, like in every country that has continental law system. in which we have a Ministry of Culture and bylaws laws and law and culture and a set of 40 or something bylaws that is covering the whole system. Beside the legal system, which is almost 90% in line with the jurisprudence of the European Union, and on the other side with the frozen status in negotiations with the European Union that is happening in the same time. In previous period of 10 years, the system was still shaping, reshaping, changing, and using so many models and tools to change, to negotiate, to cooperate, to work in the various levels within the different systems. Now I'm just focusing on the system of culture because we are using some interesting approaches when we talk about these negotiations. We have this UN agenda, National Sustainable Development Strategy 2030, which we adopted in 2020, which is the main document as a strategic document within, of course, the negotiation process, and it's covering the other strategy documents they are missing in the field of culture and of education. In this international knowledge exchange that I'm coming back to, within this system who was shaping and changing within the 10 years of the negotiation process, and almost, I don't know how many years, 17, 18 since the independence, because Montenegro's independence is 2006, the changes can be seen in the best way through culture. Even though they are maybe on the first level, you can see the changes visually in some different fields or economically, but in the more depth, the changes can be seen through culture. Because when the culture is changing, especially when we talk about small country like Montenegro, which is really small, not tiny like Albania, like very small, 500,000 people. In that sense, we are really talking about small country. And when we talk about change of the culture, then it's really visible. So when we talk about changing of the culture, we can talk about international knowledge exchange that is pushing and enforcing and changing the culture in several levels. As a small society, it is not possible to control all the influences, good and bad influences, they are coming and forcing and changing the culture. But when we talk about culture, we talk about tradition, we talk about language, we talk about identity, and all of these elements that are reserved for this world. But parallel with that, with this side that I was mentioning, we can talk about international knowledge exchange that we are aware of and that we are systematically operating and that we are in a way controlling through our system and our institutions. First of all, we are talking about membership in the Compendium of Cultural Policies and Trends, which is association of the Council of Europe, and it's a membership of all and every country that is that ratified European Convention on Culture, which is as well Italy and other 50 countries altogether. So Montenegro became a member of this compendium after 2020, and it's a 44th member of the compendium, and in that sense started to participate in this knowledge exchange in a more technical and in a more theoretical, in a way, sense, which means that we came to the level to share the knowledge, to share the information, to reporting on the situation, to informing European public on the situation, and in that sense giving possibility for the European experts and public to give a reflection on the information that are happening, in which sense we are in a way shaping the atmosphere within the state, and in a way we are pushing in this way or that direction of the Ministry of Culture. When I say we, I say university, because till 2017 only ministries of culture could represent the state in this association. But as of 17, I think the reason for that was Italy. That's my information. They opened the possibility for the higher education institutions. So university took over the position instead of state. And in that sense, using these tools of reporting and communicating with the European Union to, in a way, push or somehow direct the development in the cultural center, in the cultural system. This is the main tool that we are using in this sense, and we can already see the changes. The other thing, this is a short information about compendium. I will not hold on that. The second, the one very important tool that we used in this period of 10 years that I'm saying that we had a gap in a way, we used European projects. And European projects, we are not in position to use all European projects, but within these opportunities that we are having, we use some very important models, and we implement some very important projects. I will not read all of that, but you can see these are just two examples of the things that they happen from here outside of the systematically controlled cultural system. And the third thing that, the third model that we are using in this period, and today was already was some words about it. It's, I think my colleague Lazar was talking about the Erasmus system, that we entered into this Erasmus program and we started using it through students, through professors, making this international knowledge exchange, creating a platform within the country. And at the end, what is important about this, that is becoming, because the 10 years is a long period of time. So within this period of systematically work in this field, created a platform within the state. So now the platform is created between the university, between some of the institutions, between the professors, intellectuality. So the platform is created and is becoming very strong and really influencing the state, which was not the case in the previous time. Thank you. Hvala.
Thank you, Natasha, because you make us aware of how difficult it is to become EU member state, and how lucky we are to live in this space of democracy and freedom. So, and the idea that other countries still look at EU as a safe place, a place where they want to be, they want to grow, it's very important for us, because it's an important signal that we are going in the right direction, and that we really hope to have you in our common house.
Thank you. I would just like to comment that 10 years was a long period of time. So enthusiasm that was 10 years ago, it's not the same anymore. I mean, except that enthusiasm that changed within the country, I think the European Union changed as well. I mean, the atmosphere. So really we can talk about two completely different situations now and 10 years ago. And I think these kind of sessions and conversations are very important to recognize.
We have to hurry up, because, yes. Okay, last but not least, we have now a plan. A planned intervention that is our speaker here is Federica Antonacci. I really appreciate her t-shirt. I want one for me. And she's a truly European activist. And her presentation is about the impact of social media on democracy. And this is another very important aspect of our conversation, because we know that we are living in a time in which social media are no longer instruments for sharing pictures or doing silly things. They can also be powerful tools to express very important ideas. Federica, after attending high school, moved to London, where she studied English language and worked at a language school for foreign students. And once back in Italy, she worked in the artistic and cultural field, And following the outbreak of the war in Ukraine, she created the social project Italiana for Ukraine, which today has almost 6,000 subscribers on Instagram. So the social media is Instagram. Yeah. This project aims to raise awareness of international public opinion on what is happening there and to fight against disinformation and propaganda coming from Russia and supporting Ukrainian population. So please say us something more.
Thank you so much for having me. On May 3, 2022, I shared my very first content about Ukraine. Until that moment, I had been using Instagram like I think most people do, so ice cream, food, baby bumps, books, and so on. So that's why when I started using Instagram to support Ukraine, I had no idea of the impact that it will have on my life, but also on the life of others. I got to know a completely new reality, a real community of activists and creators, some of which have been deeply inspired me. For example, Saint Evelyn, Punto Interno, creators like Frank, Yulia Timosha, and Yulia Mendel have helped me understand so many things I used to ignore about Ukraine. Thanks to them, I decided to raise my voice, and we became family. Thanks to them, I became a digital activist without even being completely aware of that during the process. Together, we fight the toxic and false narrative of propaganda. We share about Ukrainian history and culture, explain to Western why victory is the only way out, and also made it to cancel some Putin's friends' performances here in Italy, like a Polinian show, for example, and that was already paid and sold out, so it wasn't so easy to make it, but we made it. However, it is not always easy to explain that democracy can and must also go through social media. It's not always easy to be taken seriously because most people don't have idea of the amount of work with sharing and creating, and also stand the hating coming to us on a daily basis from Russian propaganda. You have to gain the attention on those platforms like Instagram or Twitter, and it's not easy at all if you are like involved in war crimes, terrorists, or talking about war, death, because they are not topics that are mainstream, because people prefer to focus on positive stuff like fashion, food, or travel. So it's not easy to gain the attention of the main public for that. Despite this, democracy is often seen like something too lofty to end up in the dirty world of Instagram. But let's think about it. What is the item that all citizens, no matter who they are, what they believe in, or where they come from, use the most during the day? It's this. Every one of us use this because we create opinions, we communicate with the world through social media, much more than anything else. And also with our smartphone, we can have an impact on future generation. Because, it's the tool our children use the most. And if we want to talk to young people about participation, democracy, what's better way to do it? What is democracy, after all, if not the first real pop idea ever invented on history? Because democracy is for everyone, it's just to everyone, and is for everyone, just like social media and in general communication. Invasion of Ukraine is the first invasion in which communication through social media has reached a total new level. They are no longer just the tool, but they have themselves become the object. They are changing history. They are bringing people like me who have had no connection to Ukraine and have never been there close to the coast. If only each and every one of us in this room have a real awareness of how powerful we are with social media, there will be no more injustice in this world. There will be no war if each and every one of us will be aware of this. And throwing you a challenge, once you get out of here, I want you to share content. I want to use your social media to talk about something that you're passionate about, something that is also useful and urgent for society. Do it with passion, do it with love. You will see how much the world will change things of you, but you will also see how you will change through that. Slava Ukraini, thank you.
Thank you, Federica, for your passionate contribution, and also because you, as you show out that you are a dreamer, and I think that the world still needs dreamers. So maybe we can accept her invitation and try to post something. I really love the idea that democracy is pop. This could be a nice claim for a next meeting, maybe. So I really thank you, because all of you, you were perfectly in time. We started a little bit later, but we stayed in the time that we have. It is supposed now to have a moment of debate. It could be necessary, it could be good, but I don't know if you want to debate now, if you want to postpone this moment during the dinner. So I'm very democratic in this, so we can just raise our hands and decide to have now a very short debate, because they have to close the building, or if we want to postpone and to have conversation tonight, and now you can be free to enjoy the sun that is still high in the sky. So please share your intentions here. Speak now or be silent, whatever. Very democratic. Is there anyone who wants to add something? Tomorrow in the evening we will have a general debate, of course. It is part of the program, so we can just maintain that moment. But if you have some urgent questions and you want to discuss it now, we are here. What are you saying, Chiara?
Say not discouraging people. Not scoraggiare.
No, I'm just being democratic and just be kind to them, and I want to hear their.
You'll be there for dinner too, no?
Yes, I will be there. I need to go home to change, but I will be there. Don't know when, but I will be there. Yes, if you want. I just said that if there are urgent issues that needed to be discussed right now, you can raise your hands, and you have Francesco with the ice cream, because that kind of microphone in Italy is called ice cream. And any issue, question? No? No one? Do you want to go around to have a walk? They prefer to have a walk, and I'm happy of this, because Brindisi is a wonderful city, and it deserves tonight the dinner will be at 8:30 p.m. at Marea. Okay, so see you there. Thank you.